So welcome to the Moxie Best Practices Native Mobile Engagements webinar. If you are joining us live and any questions occur to you during this presentation, please do use the WebEx chat to send us through your questions. All the lines are muted just because we have a lot of people, so as you can imagine it could get quite noisy. But please do send your questions through. If we don't have time to answer them, we will answer them by follow-up email or call from one of our salespeople. So let's get started. So my name is Amy Freelander and I work out of our UK office. So I'm in the professional service team and I help everybody basically configure and use our product. Within the last year, I've particularly been focused on Moxie's mobile SDK product. So I was basically invited to come and talk to you today about the best practices around using the mobile SDK product. So some of the things that we're going to be covering today is why you must design your engagement strategy, basically with thinking about mobile users first. And then once you do actually deploy the solution, how to monitor your app usage within the Moxie product. And then we're going to be talking about some general techniques and solutions for engaging mobile users. And I will also briefly cover the necessary skills and the resources that you'll need in order to develop with our mobile SDK platform. Then at the end there'll be a short Q&A session to hopefully answer any of the questions that people have sent through in chat. But like I said earlier, if you don't have the opportunity to ask now, please do follow up by email or send it through to WebEx and we will follow up with you. So let's get started. So the first thing that we should address is what do we mean by mobile? So pretty much any portable device, so anything that isn't a traditional desktop or laptop screen. So mobile phones, tablets, car multimedia systems, kiosks, multimedia players, games, consoles, TVs, and even watches nowadays. So there are lots and lots of portable devices, and with the Internet of Things really coming into play, more and more mobile devices will come onto the market. It's quite important to note at the moment, because the mobile SDK product is quite new for Moxie, we are very much focused on mobile phones and tablets, but we've set our platforms in such a way that if in the future we need to tailor it to other devices, we will be able to do that. There won't be that technical limitation. The next question is, what do we mean by native mobile? So this is one of those terms that everybody bounds about quite a lot. And when we talk about native mobile, what we're talking about is applications, so mobile applications that you have to actually install on a device rather than just going to a responsive or a mobile website in a browser on the portable device. So this obviously leads to the question, why do I need a native mobile engagement channel when I have a responsive website for mobile customers? And this is something that a lot of people do ask us. So I think that it's important that we have a look at some of the statistics and the research behind this, just to basically emphasize why mobile apps are now so important. So for example, there's a statistic up top left here from Yahoo. So users spend 90% of their time in apps compared to the mobile web. So as you can tell, just basically from that one statistic, people vastly spend most of their time in apps, so it makes sense to put a lot of investment into apps when you're looking to serve people in a mobile way. This next stat from ComScore. So mobile app continues to outpace mobile web 7-to-1 in time spent. So it's not just that right now users spend 90% of their time in apps. The trend is that it keeps on increasing, and quite heavily too. This bottom stat from Internet Retailer, 72% of millennials will shop online this year and 58% will make purchases via mobile. So, I mean, that's a huge number of a lot of companies' target market actually do shop online, and a huge number of people actually basically making purchases on their actual mobile phone, something that would have been completely unheard of basically 10 years ago. Up here, so this stat from Express Vision, over 50% of smartphone users grab their phone immediately after waking up. So that really just goes to show the relationship that people have with their mobile phones. There's quite this symbiotic relationship. You know, a lot of people feel, you know, really lost if they don't take their mobile devices with them. They have a really strong emotional bond. So if you can get some kind of real estate on that device, you then basically have real estate in that person's life. This next stat, so form stat, 46% of users are less likely to shop around once using a company's app. So to put this in perspective, that's basically nearly half of people, once you've got them in the app and they decide they want to purchase one of your products, they basically won't go anywhere else. They will just buy it from you. So that's also a different way of looking at things and shopping to how we see on the mobile web. On the mobile web, people still tend to do a lot of comparison shopping, for example, whereas if you've basically got the app and the app that you've got allows you to make the purchase that you want, you make it. And so that's quite powerful as well. This other statistic here from NRF. Sales made on smartphones were up an average of 65% year-on-year in 2016. So again, this isn't just focused on millennials. This is overall 65% growth, basically, in the sales market alone, just on smartphones. So it's quite important, basically, to tailor your mobile strategy towards smartphones. And then this last statistic from eMarketer. Mobile offers are redeemed 10 times more often than print offers. So if you basically have a mobile app which is allowing people to see your offers, and maybe a mobile app that is somehow proactively inviting people to take up an offer, they're 10 times more likely than if you just send that to them in a post. So if you're currently doing any loyalty strategies for them at the moment, basically where you send people things, it's really an interesting concept for you to consider, the idea of basically giving people an app instead, because it's going to be a lot more effective. So this often leads to the question, what is it that apps can offer users that mobile websites cannot? Why are people so drawn to apps? Why do they basically love apps? And the reason is because apps are a lot more coupled with the device. So this means that there's better personalization that you can do with an application than you can with websites. You can do things like instant login and things, because I suppose a lot of people have seen on Apple devices, for example, you can authenticate people with their fingerprint. So that instantly allows you to basically personalize things in a much clearer way for people. Obviously, with mobile devices, there's a constant presence, so people carry them around in their phones, they carry them around in their bags, which means that if you've got real estate on that device, if you've got your app on that device, you're constant present in someone's life, that they will have in their head that you're constantly available. Obviously, as well, with mobile technology, you have access to everything everywhere, and that's very much the culture that people feel when they have their mobile devices. So if you can buy into that culture with your app, then you're onto a winner, basically. Mobile phones, tablets, etc., the processing power that's available with these compared to machines of 10 years ago is quite extraordinary. So basically, if you can create an app rather than a mobile website, that app can harness that power a lot more natively than, say, a website can. So you can do much more powerful things, basically. And this leads on to, as well, mobile phone features, so things like cameras and Bluetooth, things that you can't actually get access to via a mobile website on a device for security reasons, you can in an app. So that obviously can greatly increase your ability to support, to service, to sales even. So using those mobile phone native features are a really powerful tool. So the other thing as well is, as I briefly mentioned, it allows you in the future to think about different devices, not just those with browsers. So there may be times when you want to use a mobile device, but it doesn't have a browser. If you can download an app, then you can use the app instead. So if you think about things like kiosks, for example, you might want to put a kiosk in your store with sort of a chat. I recently visited a car hire company in the US that were doing just that, and it was a really great experience. So that's also something else to think about. The multitasking nature of portable devices, again, because of the processing power, people are so used to multitasking nowadays. They'll be using 5 or 10 apps all at once, and the devices can handle it. So that's another thing to take into consideration as to why people love it, because it loves them. It allows them to do all the things that they want to do all at once. And the next thing is, if you think about the screen real estate, if you're having to load up a browser, that browser, even in a small screen, can take up quite a significant percentage. Those 20 pixels at the top are actually quite valuable on a mobile device. So if you're using an app, you can obviously have your app take up more space on the screen, which allows you to design better user interfaces, for example, and maybe add different features. And one of the most powerful ones is notifications. So a traditional mobile website is very reactive in its nature. You provide it, you put it on your server, you sit it there on the internet, and you wait for people to come to you. But if somebody's downloaded your app, you can basically send them notifications to basically trigger behaviour to get them to interact with you. And people like that. They like to have little reminders. They like to be told when they should consider doing something, for example, or someone sent them a message or something like that. And that's why people really love mobile apps a lot more than they love mobile websites. So let's look at a typical story to kind of put this into perspective. So this is Louisa. She's a busy 20-something-year-old, and she uses her phone for absolutely everything. So she's used to having instant access to absolutely everything she possibly could need, and in her opinion, if she can't organise it using her phone, it's probably not worth doing. But now, she's even busier because her sister's getting married and she's maid of honour. So as you can imagine, she's got lots of organising to do. So she's using her phone to talk to her family, friends in order to organise all the proceedings. One thing that she needs to do is she needs to open up her car insurance app, and she wants to talk to an agent about adding her cousin to her insurance policy because her cousin's coming to the wedding. Meanwhile, she's also talking to her cousin on Facebook to get all of her cousin's details and her information. So this is a real example of how an app can be used for a real service purpose or a real upsell, cross-sell type opportunity. The next thing she's doing, so she could be multitasking, she could be doing all of this all at once. So she's on her favourite clothes brand app, and she's trying to piece together perfect outfits for everyone. So she needs information on sizing so that she can find the perfect outfits for all the bridesmaids. So here's another thing, it's a value-added service that she's getting from this particular clothes brand. They're helping her, it's like a virtual assistant sort of thing. And the other thing she's doing as well, she's also using her mobile phone to contact venues and entertainment providers directly. So she's using something that's a little bit more of an old-fashioned technology, but she's still expecting somewhat instant results or responses back from that. And she's also using her favourite travel app to get everyone hotel rooms at good prices. So this is one thing that I wanted to hone in on. It's the concept of once somebody downloads your app and they like it, they'll keep going back to it time and time again. You know, people will develop basically favourites, apps that they use all the time. So if you can become one of the favourite apps, you can really buy a big piece of somebody's spending power or just their mindset, their brand loyalty. So one key thing about this story is that whenever she goes onto a website, her attention dwindles, or she gets distracted by another app, or she gets frustrated. So because of the mobile experience isn't quite what she's expecting, or if she's got distracted by another app, she might find it hard to go back to the mobile browser and find the particular tab in that browser that she was using to research whatever she was researching at that time. So using apps is really helping her to focus her attention on the little things and the little tasks she wants to achieve. So let's say that you do take the mobile SDK products and you go for it. So how would you monitor the effectiveness of your mobile engagement strategy? So this question basically starts with an answer, or another question, which is basically, how will you measure success? So what are your KPIs? Is it about increasing things or decreasing things? Is it all to do with increasing basically your app usage, the amount of downloads, the amount of in-app purchases, the amount of invitations? Is it about brand loyalty or customer experience or some kind of level of service? Is it about increasing upgrades or upsell or cross-sell opportunities? Is it about basically increasing the number of chats about promoted products or services? Or is it perhaps trying to decrease the number of people that visit a physical location or make a booking or appointment with a physical location? So is it basically a way to channel your sales pipeline into somewhere where a sale can actually be made? Or is it just quite as simple as basically trying to decrease the number of calls to your call centre? It's all about basically thinking about what is appropriate for your brand and for your product. So once you've got that, one of the biggest recommendations that we can make is basically once you start to set things up is to have service lines within the Moxie product dedicated to your mobile SDK users so that you can get reports directly from Moxie and you can accommodate the response time in a mobile app because they will differ somewhat from web chat. So it's important that you basically have different reports so that you can easily have comparisons in place. So some of the other things that we also recommend is that you pass through any custom data available in the application so that you can really take advantages of personalization available in a mobile app. So this could be things like people's email, their username, or their customer type. And this would also allow you to group statistics. It won't just help the agent service the customer, it will also help you get information. Something else again to do with personalization is basically you make sure that you link your personalization in your mobile app with the personalization in your website, because you might find that your mobile app usage is just a conduit into the actual sale, and the actual sale will still be down on the website for some reason. So that's important information to try to gather as well. Within the mobile SDKs, you have something called delegate methods, which are basically like events. So whenever anything happens in the mobile SDK, we will basically send out a notification to the application. So the application can basically grab hold of that and it can add it to your normal analytics tools. Say you're using Google Analytics, for example. As normal, we'd always recommend that you have agents add disposition codes at the end of chat. This assists with further categorization so you can perform more analysis. And we'd also recommend that you make use of post-chat surveys to get more qualitative data and feedback. So, whilst we're talking about things around best practice, what specific techniques will make for more effective engagements in mobile apps? So, ensure that your agents are familiar with the apps that your users are using, especially if you want them to help with app usage. This is quite important. So change the portal that a user's going to if they're already logged in so that it feels like a seamless integration. And if they're already logged in, don't ask them again for their name and their email address and things like that, because you already know it and you don't want that. You don't want anything that's a barrier to entry or anything that feels like it's not fully integrated with your app. Make your Android and iOS experiences as similar as possible. So when users switch between mobile devices, they don't feel a difference. So, I mean, a lot of us have an Android phone and then an iOS tablet, for example. So if we've got an app on both, it's really good if they're both very similar. It helps with the kind of app and brand loyalty aspect. As I mentioned earlier, pass through as much data from your app to the agent as possible to continue the personalized app experience and to help the agent assist the customer. Do enable a notification so that users are notified when an agent responds to their messages. And also, just because you're using sort of new technology around mobile SDK doesn't mean that you can't use things like A/B testing anymore. There are plenty of A/B testing frameworks available for mobile apps too. The other thing that you can consider doing is deploying your mobile engagement strategies for users where you think it's going to be most effective. So if you have things like customer groups, for example, or you have like your premium customers or your special customers or a particular type of customer, a new customer, It might be worth basically tailoring your app so that you only provide chat to those customers, or the converse of that is maybe you could even make it an advanced feature that you can charge people for. Sort of instant online chat, for example, might be something that people might pay extra for depending on your area of business. So some other sort of little pieces of advice would be things that with your messages, make sure that they're kind of fast, short, snappy, and delivered quite frequently rather than big, long, comprehensive things. Just because there's not as much screen real estate on mobile devices, but also because people are very much used to fast-paced multitasking with apps. So it's quite important that you basically tailor your engagement so that it suits the device that people are on. Likewise, take a friendly and informal approach in language and communications, so that, again, you're reflecting the informal and user-friendly relationship that users have with their mobile devices. If you're too formal, it basically might bust people out of that kind of natural relationship that they're having with their devices. Harness the power of the camera on smartphones and tablets so that people can send you photos or images of things to add an extra additional level of service. So, for example, if somebody's in your store and they found a particular item, they can't find it on your website or they can't find it in the app, allow them to take a photo of what they've seen in the store and send it to you so that you can help them identify what the product is. In terms of when you actually come to thinking about your deployment strategy and your development strategy, think about getting an app with Moxie SDK out of the box before you start trying more of the advanced features. The mobile SDK is basically designed so that you can kind of drag-drop it into your mobile app and change a few configuration parameters, and then away you go. So it's quite good to basically harness that, maybe do a proof of concept or just launch it in its basic format so that you can get the quickest value and business buy-in as soon as possible. The other thing that we often recommend to people is to try to plan in several iterations and deployments so that you can make small changes to tailor your strategy. And one of the mistakes I've seen people make is basically try to do too much too soon. So they basically take the mobile SDK and they want to use all the features as soon as possible. And that has a lot of complexity to their testing and things. So it inevitably delays projects. And it could also just add a lot more extra complexity, which stops you actually getting the value for money out to the customer. So next kind of question that we often get asked is, what is needed to use the mobile SDK product? So there are two SDKs. One is for iOS devices and one is for Android. The Android can actually be used in a wrapper, and it can actually provide applications to BlackBerries and Windows devices too. Because there are two SDKs, you will need two sets of developers. So you'll basically need people that can code in Objective-C for iOS and people that can code in Android's flavor of Java for Android. The solution, so the mobile SDK, does not work in cross-platform application frameworks like PhoneGap. PhoneGap is basically a wrapper that allows you to take a mobile website, a responsive website, and put it in this little wrapper to make an app. And that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about very much native things that are coded in Objective-C for iOS or Java for Android. In terms of what you need on the Moxie side, so you'll need Concierge. If you don't have Concierge, then you will need a Moxie-hosted Channels 9.4 system in our cloud to use the chat or email, and you will need a KB 9.4 system or above in our cloud to use Knowledge. If you have Concierge, then Concierge basically automatically comes with channels and or KBE, depending on what you're basically using it for, whether you're using it for chat or email or Knowledge. So if you have Concierge, that will come basically for free. One of the biggest recommendations that we also have is that you have a test system where you can actually give your application developers logins so that they can mimic agent behavior when they're testing the chat integrations. One of the other problems that we've seen basically is that because it requires specialist skills to basically use these SDKs. It's often given to a third party or a team within the business that doesn't have a clue what Moxie is. So they've been given this third-party piece of software to integrate into their app, and they cannot test it for themselves. They cannot see the experience holistically. So it causes a lot of problems when it comes to testing and understanding. So that's one thing that we really quite strongly recommend, is that you have a test system and you let your application developers pretend to be agents so that they can see how it's all going to work together. So at this point, I don't know if we've got any questions. I don't think that we do. So I think we'll move on to the next thing. So at this point, it's just my opportunity to say to you, thanks for attending, thank you for coming. If you do have any questions at any point, feel free to send them into your salespeople or Moxie events, and we will definitely get back to you on those. And these slides and information will be made available to you through our Moxie events team. So thank you very much.